What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another collaboration here on the O'Shea Duke Jackson YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. And I'm with one of our traveling brothers out here. The brother's name is Drees. I'm going to let him introduce himself and what his channel is all about. Go ahead, brother.
What's going on, everybody? This is Drees, aka Lex Luger. Some of y'all know why they call me that. But I'm one of the brothers that's in the travel sector. I'm glad to finally be here. You know, shout out to O'Shea for letting me come on this platform this beautiful morning. I'm out here right now in Tijuana. I wish I could show you, but I don't really have the phone set up to where I could back and forth with the camera. But right now, I'm just getting myself together. I just finished another little procedure yesterday. My eye look kind of well, on this side, my eyes kind of look like it's kind of shot because I had anesthesia and my whole face was like numb as shit. But I'm not just out here having fun. I just happen to come out here doing a good time, doing a couple things out here. My channel is mostly centered around the travels that I have. It's not necessarily a travel channel, it's just the travel that I have experienced. I have some travel that I haven't even put up yet, but I've been to a considerable amount of countries and I've been to a lot of places, seen a lot of things, but at the end of the day, there's no place like home. I am from a place called New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm looking forward to go out and see more and more of the world.
All right, and I was introduced to you by Richie. That's how I found out about you and your channel. And shout out to the brothers, in the travel sector. But one of the things I noticed, because if I looked at your channel, you've been all over, all over Latin America for sure. But before we kind of get into the topic, how long have you been? What started you doing international travel as an African American man?
Well, I started international travel as far back as maybe 8 or 9 years old. My father used to be in the service, and his Air Force base was on the tip of Michigan, but you could go into Canada. And so when we used to go up there and revisit his base, we'd go to Canada. So I used to go to Ontario, I used to go to Quebec. I think that's well, either way, we used to go to Canada. So that started me off there. And growing up, I would go to school here in New Orleans, and then I'd go to Houston, and I go to New Jersey, I go to New York, I go to Boston. There, I'd be sent to other places in Louisiana, but I never really stayed home as a youngster. Growing up, even more so, being in the high school, after I stopped going everywhere after school, I started doing junior Olympic track. So after school, I was then doing AAU track. That's probably what y'all call it out on the West Coast where you're from, O'Shea. But going into the track game, I was going to Arkansas, I was going to Florida, I was going to Mississippi. I was hitting all the states in the South. And sometimes, with the track team I was on, they would invite people from other states. And sometimes the people from other states would invite certain runners to their state, and you go out there and run. Eventually, I got out of high school, stopped college, started working, became a normal person, became a commoner. And what I would do is from time to time is on the weekend, when I get paid Friday, I just get in the car, get on the road, go to Baton Rouge, go to Texas. Sometimes I take a week off, ride to Colorado, just ride, But just being out of the normal area, that was a thing. That was a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was about going to the club 24/7,
mm-hmm.
but getting up and just being able to be somewhere else, even for a little while, that was thrilling to me. Then all of a sudden, I got up in age, got to late 30s, and the urge to want to go a little bit further than Boston came, to go mm-hmm. further than New York, Cleveland, Orlando. It came back to me, and what happened was I actually met a lady who was in the States, but she was from Panama. So after I checked her out, I'm looking at her and I'm comparing her to the people that I've dealt with previously here in the States, and I was like, well, I already had it in my mind to go back internationally traveling, but mm-hmm. I never tracked how people acted. So if mm-hmm. people acting like they coming here, maybe I need to go out there and check them out. And I've been doing that since 2016, and I haven't looked back.
Let me ask you a question. You make a good point. You said you was comparing how she acted to other people in the States. What was so different about how she treated you in comparison to some of the other women you dated before?
Well, the thing about what I was saying about that is, you know, we have a thing in the South called Southern hospitality. And as much as we say it, that kind of don't exist no more. But when I came and a thing that she was doing, I had her come stay at my place because she was like on hard time and whatnot, you know, and I wouldn't require her to do, you know, but they have this thing with being more of an asset than a liability. You know, I didn't ask her to clean my place, but I would come home and, you know, my drum machine was clean, Lysol and shit. You know, my floors was mopped, other floors were vacuumed. I'm like, you know, swept and shit, and all like, she doing shit I ain't even asking her to do. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know, it's like she just knew how to be an asset to somebody. And I was like, hey, I didn't get that out of the last chick that I was dealing with from New Orleans. You know, so that's kind of what made me realize maybe I should check people out in other places.
So what was the first country? I mean, since you had, you know, because you were traveling all over the United States, you know, New York, Cleveland. So once you met her in Panama, what was the first country that you went to in your late 30s that you started, you know, internationally? Where did you go?
Colombia.
Colombia. Okay, now what was so good about Colombia?
Oh man, it's just a beautiful place, man, to begin with, you know. But the thing was, I was actually out there, you know, doing work. Let me give a shout out right now to Tailor Made Dreams, because I was working in his investment group, and he was out there trying to find, you know, property for rent to make a profit, you know, turn a profit and do things like that. But it was a very beautiful place, man. You know, the people are beautiful. I'm not just gonna leave it to the women, the women, but the people are beautiful. How they carry themselves, you know, you greet them, they greet you, you know, and everything is just open out there. You know, it was a breath of fresh air to begin with. You know, let me say that. It was definitely a breath of fresh air. You know, let
me ask you this, because let me cut you off, because you were going out there where Tailor Made it was a breath of fresh air. Because I know a lot of brothers, when they go to, I haven't heard it about Colombia, but Brazil, which we'll talk about in a minute. When they go to Brazil, a lot of guys I've heard cry on the plane back to America. So if Colombia is a breath of fresh air, what is dating like for most African American men back in the States, in your opinion?
Well, after a while, if you're trying to say like, they still, you know, you got some people who still on that hybrid shit. They'll date in out of the country and then date in the country. But you know, if you get to a point where you're going every 2 months, every 3 months, or you're going out there every third month, you know, and staying out there 6 months, where you got a substantial amount of time to actually meet somebody and be with somebody, rather than the average street meet or woman of the night, you know. It might, for some people that I reckon, that I've come across, once they started getting to that making that travel into a certain country a normality, they started to leave alone where they came from. Not to say that they have become disinterested or have divested, but you know, you know, a lot of people take it as the people that are being left alone, i.e. black women, they being shit on and stuff like that, and that's not the case, you know. But a lot of people just get to a point of normality and travels. You know, it's like if you somewhere else, you're not gonna deal with where you were. You're gonna deal with where you at. So it's a hell of a thing, because you know, a lot of people talk about how when you talk to people who talk about the Thailanders, you know, I don't really get it, but you talking about, oh, they bow to you. I'm like, I mean, I guess that's all right, but you know, but you got cooking shit, you know, that do shit in a certain manner for you that you just not, well, that you should be used to. I'll say that. But for the most part, like I said, it's just a breath of fresh air that you don't mind having every now and again, you know. But it's not to on like where you come from or nothing like that.
You know, a lot of you know, African American men, such as yourself, I know brothers like, like you and Richie, Rotate. There is historically always been, in the last 20 years, since you're seeing a lot of African American men go out and resettle into certain communities, whether it's the Dominican Republic. You have brothers that are opening up businesses down there, restaurants and things of the nature. You have brothers like yourself who've been, Colombia, currently in Mexico, these Latin American countries. And then you hear a response a lot of times, not from obviously all black women, but, there's certain articles that have been written about guys like yourself that people are saying, well, you brothers are just going out to these places because the women are poor. You're not able to handle the women back in America, so you're going there where women don't have an opportunity, and things like that. I know you hear that also or in Black YouTube. What do you say to people that are detractors? You even have a lot of guys that say that. It's not just women. You have guys that criticize other guys for going out and exploring things. What do you have to say to guys like that?
I mean, my thing is, the majority of y'all need to come and see for yourselves. It's not about them actually being, to them it might be therefore. To me, after coming here and seeing them, it seems like they're a lot happier with less. Based on where we come from, a lot of people are very miserable with what all they have, with all the entitlements they have, with all the money that they can get, with everything they got access to. Miserable. And I'd rather be out here with the people who are having fun, living life and being happy with less than the people that got all the entitlements and they're at home miserable. I'd just rather be there. I'm not trying to shit on nobody and nothing like that. That's not what it's about. But once you come out here and witness these people out here with less that are happy, you know what I'm saying? You kind of want to partake in that. You know what I'm saying? Well, for me, it ain't about coming out here and getting with girls. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm out here right now. I'm getting procedures done. I was explaining that to you earlier. That's what this trip is about. It's about getting some possible root canal. Trying to find, these people told me if I come here and do this, I can like bypass getting a root canal. That shit hurt. But I mean, the thing is, it's just a simple fact that I've come out here and I witnessed it. A lot of people that's in the States are going off of what they're seeing on Netflix, going off on what they're seeing or what they think they know from somebody else who think they know. And the next thing you know, they going on and saying whatever they're saying. Then you got people who are going out to these places and they pretty much going out here and clickbaiting the whole thing, going out here and making all these claims about this, that, and the other, but they're not showing you what they're talking about. Just making up shit as they go. I mean, I don't get it, but to those people, hey, all I can say is I wish y'all well. And, at the end of the day, when you come out here and witness it for yourself, that's when you really gonna get a feel for how it is in these other places. I don't look at a lot of these places as third world countries. Definitely not. And of course you got your hoods, your favelas, your communas and whatnot. But for the most part, they, like I say, they happier with less. And when you witness people who are happier with less, it kind of made me feel kind of stupid, because it was like I got all of this here where I came from with all of this that I have here. Miserable. Saying, I don't know if you wanted me to cuss or not, but that's just how I was just feeling at the time. But it's a hell of a thing to witness people with less that are enjoying themselves, that are living their best life.
So let me kind of ask you, when it comes to this, a lot of black men in America feel like when they're doing, because you're from New Orleans, historically one of the most, popular African American dominated cities in the South. For black men, you have to have so much. You need to be a certain height. You need to have a certain amount of money. You need to have certain things in order to attract women. Right now in America, there's a big, especially now in the black sector, you see the emergence of, black dating coaches and things like that. And you know, I did a show with Black Males Travels, and he was, you know, we did a controversial show called "Why Black Men Don't Need Dating Coaches Overseas." But you mentioned that a lot of women are happier with less in other places, and in America, it seems like a lot of Black men, the more it seems like you can never, for certain people, you can never have enough. It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Do you feel like when you were coming up in the New Orleans area or in the South, that no matter what you did, it was never enough?
Right. I mean, that's just about how a lot of us feel, you know. Well, speaking for myself, that's how I felt. You know, I had to have the you know, it was growing up younger. It was things that they spoke on. Yeah, you got to have a job. Yeah, you probably got to have a car, your own apartment. All right, that was cool. I could deal with that because when you of age, you're supposed to have a job. You're supposed to have, you know, supposed to at least have a job in a place to stay. You know, you can have a car. All right, that's a bonus. Now, you gotta have the Jordans, which some I don't understand. You gotta have the goals. You gotta have swag, which is some I don't understand either. You know, I'm sorry for cussing, but you know, the requirements that they have are things that you don't even really need. You know, that you could, you know, that I care less for. You know, I mean, I'm 5'6". You know, if the broad that's 6'2" don't like me, okay, maybe I should just go on, work on till I find a chick that's 5'5" that can deal with my personality. You know, but as far as trying to be mad with the people and their requirements, that just let me know, hey, at the end of the day, it don't make no sense for me to deal with you. And if it forced me to get on a plane to go to Colombia, then all right, it is what it is.
You know, let me talk about that because, you know, a lot of you brothers are traveling and you know, I interviewed brother Larry at the American Brazilian YouTube channel. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a, you know, business owner in Jacksonville in the Duval area, Duval County, and he married a Brazilian woman that was very similar to what you talked about. There was a young lady in Panama that you met. Well, she was in Florida, and it's how he met her. But he said his idea, because, you know, people look at Colombia or Brazil and think that these places, you know, are just so messed up. You know, Colombia has made great improvements as a country. You know, Medellin is ran very well from what I understand. The transport system is, you know, second to none. You know, it's a lot of opportunities there. And what a lot of Black women are saying that have these arguments against brothers that are traveling or going out there exploring their options. Well, you know, what they're saying, things such as, well, you know, these ladies is using you for a green card because they want to come to the United States. But when I hear guys talk to the women, like sometimes, a lot of times, a lot of these women do not want to come to the United States. They want to stay in their country, right? Is that true?
True. You know, because, you know, you want a lot of these people that think all this stuff about green card and all this, that they ain't got nothing going for themselves. Listen, I just met a lady, my dinner I was supposed to take her to dinner yesterday, you know, because she did a good job on my stuff. You know, and we was talking, we had a conversation, and she, you know, America right there. She don't want to go over there. She having a good time, great time, you know, living her life, being here, being a doctor, being a dentist. You know what I'm saying? But it's a lot of people who you talk to that will say that they do not want to go to America. Might want to visit, but, you know, not necessarily stay, you know, because in the travel community, there's a thing against, you know, trying to deal with women that say they looking for a serious relationship, yet they want to come to the States. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, if I were to meet somebody that wanted to come to the States, all right, that's cool. But you not going to get that passport out of me. That's got to be something you got to have already, because, you know, I'm not trying to be nobody's meal ticket. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of the people are not necessarily trying to, but people that's trying to scheme, those are the people that's coming over here, and those are the people that you see ending up, you know, getting stabbed at the hairdresser because the man found out you about to leave him after you done married him. You know, so, you know, I like just dealing with the people. You know, I mean, like, some people ask me at consultations. Some of the folks, they like asking me in my consultations about You know, should I bring her back? I'm like, nah. You know, I mean, that's on you if that's what you want to do. But what you might want to do is learn the language. And if you're in a Spanish-speaking country, then you might want to move to another part of that Spanish-speaking country, or just another Spanish-speaking country altogether. You know, so both of y'all have a fresh start, just in case of some shit that all of a sudden you bring it to the States and then you find out, or vice versa. And, you know, and everything will be all right. But a lot of people don't take the time out to learn the language, because I'm at a party, just to branch off from what you were asking about. I'm at a party and this dude sitting up here, and he had these two ladies with him, and I know some of the language. They were sitting up there talking about this man like a dog, but he just sitting up there smiling, happy. He got, you know, think he got it going on, but he don't realize, you know. And the next day I saw, you know, I'm gonna just say the brother had a bad time because he didn't know what was going on. You know what I'm saying? But learn the language when you get out here. You know, just because you in another language, just because I'm across the street from San Diego, pretty much, doesn't mean that these people are required to understand your language. They speak their language. You gotta at least know some of theirs. At least know enough to order some food. You know your money and stuff like that. But a lot of these people are not interested in going to America, and that's the plain truth. But you know, you got some who do. You got some who aspire. You got some people who are going to America to learn. I got a friend in DR. She got a degree in marketing. She went to the States and worked for like 6 months. So, but at the end of the day, it's up in there. You just have to act individually for yourself.
Okay, so you know, a lot of people say that, you know, black men are moving towards countries that, you know, don't have good economy set up for them. You know, because, you know, obviously, you know, African American men typically don't know Spanish when they're going, or Portuguese. And they're saying, well, a lot of these guys that are going to these places, how are they even supporting themselves? They're going over there and they don't have, you know, any income, you know, they're not supporting themselves. So they're ending up being the bottom of the barrel of those societies. What has been your experience when you meet, you know, other African American men in the DR that live there permanently, or Colombia? What have you found from guys that live there? Are they poor or homeless like people are saying some of them could be?
Nah, I mean, first up, if you're able to go to another country to begin with, you know, you kind of, you know, well off in the pocket, you know what I'm saying? But to the people that I have met in those other countries, a majority of those brothers are Bitcoin and foreign exchange. They got property, they renting it out on Airbnb. They got way off. You got the ones that's retired from the army or retired from this job, working here in the States. And, you know, their gift to them in their retirement is to get out of the States. Because, you know, we all know the stress that we have going on here daily in the United States. You know, so I see nothing wrong with if you choose to go to another country, and, you know, as long as you're not, you know, leaving problems behind or anything like that. If you had the freedom to go, then go. You know what I'm saying? You know, they won't give me flack for going to Mexico, but you had 4 chicks that went to Italy for love. Nobody even know if they came back yet, but nobody said that. You know what I'm saying? So I just want the same freedom they got. I got the same freedom they got. I got the same blue book they got. So if I got the opportunity to go and live in another country, not saying that because I might not, you know, I might not be of this stature in the States. It's not like I'm going out there, you know, and live at the bottom of the barrel, because, you know, I wasn't at the bottom of the barrel in the United States, you know. So I'm going to try to maintain the same type of lifestyle, but at the same time, when you look at how these people live, you know, if I'm out here and they work and they make it 260 a month, but I can work online doing foreign exchange, and I'm doing that same 260 plus a week, then the bottom of the barrel is the last place I'm gonna be. And that's for anybody that's out here that's trapped. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it's just a lot of people that just ain't happy unless they complain. That's the bottom line too.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that for black men that want to live overseas, you know, versus living in America, do you think that African American men have a better opportunity in these other countries? resettling and building a life for themselves than they do in the powerhouse economy like the United States of America.
But the thing about it is, it's a lot of people in the United States that only want to use the United States to make money, and then they take that money and probably go and flip it and double it over here in another country doing whatever endeavor that they're doing. But at the end of the day, for us, hey, as far as that's concerned, there's no place like home. But home is not made for black men anymore. It's made for the entitled people. And I won't get into all of that, but if some people just say maybe I might have a shot, going over to DR and having that club, or going over to Bogota and getting me a barbershop. And shout out to those fellas that made that move. I'm trying to follow in the same move, but as we are going along and trying to follow in that same move, we just got to find our own niche and what we need to be doing overseas. And after that, everything comes.
Let me ask you this: as far as black men, overseas and things like that, what advice would you? Let me kind of go back. You've been to a lot of countries, right? So number one, what country would you say is your favorite that you would like to do? And then, and for those guys who would like to live overseas, what advice would you give them for how to start that process?
Well, the thing is, my favorite country, for me to be saying, okay, my favorite country overall that'd be like for me saying, okay, my traveling is over. My traveling is not over. But I will tell you that my heart is torn between Colombia and Brazil right now. I'm trying to get to Ghana and I want to experience that, but I was telling you before the live, I'm experiencing certain issues and it's holding me back from finally making that step to get there. So I'm looking at the possibilities of doing the remote working myself. And right now, the best thing you can do is if I'm gonna work remotely and I'm gonna be somewhere remote, I'd rather be somewhere that's closer, just in case whatever my endeavor is doesn't work. It's easier for me to get back to to my place of origin. So, but my heart is torn between Brazil and Colombia. That's a hard one. But for me to say my favorite country is, that's like saying traveling is over. But to the brothers who are traveling or looking to travel for that first time, I don't know exactly what you probably plan on doing while you're traveling, but to get your feet wet, start in DR. Mm-hmm. Then make your way over to the northern half of Southern America. Check out Medellin, check out Bogota. Now you got a lot of places where so many people saying that we just over here looking for women, and you go to this place and this place, but you got certain places where if you really out there, you plan on staying a long time, and you really trying to find somebody to be jammed with, you can go to this place and this place. But at the end of the day, I say then after you experience, say DR first and then Colombia second, I would then say try Brazil. Because the way I look at it, as far as everything you want, as far as nightlife, as far as adventure, as far as if you going out to just women, I look at Brazil at the top of the food chain. Mm-hmm. Then once you do those three, then go ahead on and hit other countries. But this year, if I'm able to do it, I will be hitting new countries, because every year for my birthday, which is in May, I happen to go to a new country. That's my present. Mm-hmm. So it's not no such thing as Drake still going to keep going to Brazil. Drake keep going to Colombia. Nah, I'm going to stay in Brazil to do my remote work. But, you got Argentina, you got Uruguay, you got Paraguay, you got Chile, you got Peru. These are spots that I haven't, I probably did like a layover there, and didn't really step out the airport, but these are places that I've seen and be like, I'm going to eventually go back. And another thing that I plan on doing as well is on the weekend warrior tip is, hit up all the countries in Central America, because, That's something I just want to do. You know, it was something that was always in my heart from the longest. You know, that was instilled by my father. You know, and shout out to that brother. And you know, see you soon.
Well, let me ask you the last question. Why do you think so many, African American women that comment and say the things they do, why are they so upset that brothers are going to live overseas? Why do you think that there's such a big deal about that now?
Well, I've heard one woman in particular say that the men that are traveling to other countries, staying in other countries, are rejects. But probably the thing is, the ones that they're left with, which are the ones that they really choose, are probably the rejects. So even though as much as you want to say that we are even,
say it again.
I said the ones that you want to call us the ones that's leaving rejects, but the ones that you're probably dealing with are what you would really consider rejects. So, but for the most part, I mean, like I said earlier, people are not happy, especially black people. They're not happy unless they're complaining about something.
That's a good way to sum it up, brother. So go ahead and let everybody know, if they were to come unsubscribe to the Drees, aka Lex Luger YouTube channel, what kind of content will you have over there for them, brother?
It's gonna be a majority of travel right now with COVID-19 destroying everything. I'm not traveling as much, but I'm still making moves, as you can see right now. This is my room here in Tijuana. But I also do consultations mostly on, if you're going for your first time to Medellin, you're going to for your first time to Brazil, Rio, whatnot. I look out for you, give you a few pointers here and there. You can take them all down there, and make sure you get around safe. A majority of the stuff that I talk about is to keep that first time traveler as well as the regular everyday traveler safe, keep them happy, and keep them in places where where they are safe, for the most part. But you come to my channel, which is Drees TV, DREEZ TV. You can also see me by the same name on Instagram. I mostly post a little footage of places I've been to. Recently, sometimes I post travel footage that I just, decided to just put up there. Might have been from 4 years ago, but for the most part, it's a channel that I just started to do Instagram. And, like I said, just come on through. You got any questions? Just know that certain questions will not be answered live, will not be answered in the video, but you probably might have to go through some other form of communication to get those answers.
Okay, and we'll make sure we put the email and stuff on the screen and things you want on there. And brother Drees, I definitely thank you. It's been a long time coming on here. Thank you for coming on to the channel. I know that you're busy in Tijuana. Shout out to the Road to Tape YouTube channel. And guys, another collaboration in the books. And as you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. I'm out.